My name is John Lowell, and I'm the founder and CEO of Complete Contract Cycle, a U.S. patent pending contract negotiation tool that does 5 main things. First, it separates the contract by clause so that each party's stakeholders can negotiate with their counterparts in isolation in our tool. Second, it allows parties to negotiate anonymously if required to protect the integrity of the anonymous bidding process in an RFP. Third, it allows the stakeholder owner of each clause to provide a risk score for that clause after it is finalized. Fourth, our tool provides email status updates to all stakeholders, whether it's operations, sales, procurement, finance, or anyone else involved in the transaction, so that those individuals no longer need to send emails to their lawyers asking for status. And lawyers can be insulated from those respective organizations as needed to review and approve the document without interference. And finally, our tool tracks all approvals through our audit log, which does not allow the signatory to sign until all approvals are in place. So let me show you how we do this. I'm going to create a new transaction. The way I do that is I name the transaction, and then I enter the email address of the supplier. Of course, this assumes I'm the customer and I'm initiating an RFP or a new MSA with the vendor I want to do business with. So after that transaction is initiated, I can create a host of documents, whether it's multiple master agreements, amendments to those agreements, statements of work, etc. So the next thing I'm going to do is create a new document. Then I can decide whether I want it to be anonymous if it's an RFP or if I want the parties to know the identity of their counterparts. So let's say this is an RFP, we mark it anonymous, and now we select our contract template. Then we click Create. Then the contract template is sliced up. We go back into that transaction, and then let's say we want to add a new clause. So for purposes of this demo, I'm just going to do a one-clause contract. So I'm the customer, and I'm creating a new contract to send over to my supplier. So the contract is sliced up, and in this case, I'm manually inserting a clause, and I save it. I'm going to save it as initial clause. And now I'm going to log out, and the supplier is going to log into the tool. So they will come to our page, and they'll come to this page, the sign-in page, and they will log in. And then when they get there, they click on Transaction, and then they'll see their documents list. Before they can view it, though, they have to choose who owns the document. So they choose an owner who owns the document. Then they open the document and they'll have all the clauses listed here. In this case, for purposes of this demo, it's just one clause. So we have to assign an owner. So we're going to choose the general counsel, and then however many people in the general counsel's office, those individuals' names will appear in this drop down, and we select one. Okay, now as you can see up here, I am that individual, so I can review the clause. So I click on it, and this is our editor. So the clause pops up in our editor, and when we look at this language, we see here a limitation liability of 150% of the value of the agreement. And as the supplier, we think 150 is too high. We don't want to take on more liability than the value of the deal. So we change it to 100%, and we propose change. Now, just like when you're sending Word documents back and forth, you might save it the way you would save those drafts of Word docs of agreements, where you put your initials and a date, and then you save it. So now the customer will log in, and they go into the limitation of liability, and they see that 150% has been changed to 100, and they say, okay, 100%, that's the market limitation of liability in our industry, so I guess we can approve that change. They click approve. So they will name it their initials, and they click OK. So now they log out. The supplier logs in. So the supplier looks here, and they can see over here the status, right? It's approved, approved by customer. Okay, so they say, oh, they accepted our change. Okay, now we can approve this clause. After they approve the clause, they go back to the documents page where all the clauses to that contract are listed. So now that it's been approved, they're ready to add the name of their signatory to sign the contract, and then they can approve the document. So supplier logs out. They've done all they can do at this point. They're waiting on their customer. Customer logs in. And the customer sees here that it's approved by supplier. So now the customer knows we're ready to sign. So the customer adds the name of their signatory. And now customer approves. Customer signs. Now supplier logs in. And now the supplier signs. So notice both parties have signed, approved by customer, approved by supplier. Both parties have approved. So now from this screen, we're in the dashboard and my documents. If we click this green icon here, we can generate the contract document. This demo is just a one-clause document between fictional ABC company and XYZ company. It's a limitation liability, and you can see both parties have signed it. Now, if you look carefully, you'll see here the change was made from 150% to 100%. So that change has been captured here through our editor and then has now shown up in the final PDF version of the contract. Now, once a contract has been signed, what we can do is we can go into the transaction and we can look at audit logs. And what this shows us is who took action when, and here you can see clause was approved by customer, clause was approved by supplier, document approved by supplier, document approved by customer. So there you don't need email approvals because everything here shows up in our audit log. Now, let's say that either party wants to score their risk on this transaction. So in this case, the supplier made a change from 150% to 100%. So for them, they would give that a 10 out of 10, a perfect score. And now all the stakeholders within XYZ company can see that the risk score was 10. It'll be weighted as they see fit. So that way the companies can assess their risk without using internal tools of their own. They can do that all in our tool. So that's everything. Thanks for your time.